Yeah, here we are again. We made it to episode number 3, which means that we're on episode number 3. Yeah, nobody fired us yet, so that's good. That's good. That's really good, especially in this economy. So yeah, jumping right in. Hey, but before we jump right in, let's jump right into what you did last weekend. What did you do last weekend?
Went to the beach. We went to St. George Island in Florida, which is gorgeous. It's about like 4 miles off the coast of like the Apalachicola Bay, down here in the Florida Big Bend area, and we went down and got out just as a hurricane was
Oh yeah,
coming in.
yeah, yeah. My stepdaughter's out on the East Coast right now, and so we're like keeping tabs on the weather out there because they got to be able to fly back from New York, but they have to go through Atlanta and deal with all that stuff too. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
it was gorgeous though, and I'd never been. So again, I live in Alabama, and so we're like 90 minutes from Panama City. We had never
Yeah,
been to St. George. St. George is just like this really chill little. It's like a strip of land. It is an island, obviously, but like it's like this really long strip of land, and so it's not very like deep, and so
yeah.
like there's a ton of houses where you could just like walk out the back door and you're like on the beach.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
rad.
dope. It was dope. Good
That's
times.
cool.
Yeah, man. How about you?
Uh, I have the most uh kind of siloed, boring life most of the time as a musician because I'm in my studio a lot. My friends are constantly like, dude, you never get out. You never come hang out and barbecue or do whatever. I'm like, I know, but I'm almost 50 and I had kids young. And so my kids are all out of the house. They're adults. And so I'm like, well, now I get to do what I want with my time, which historically, while I had children, has always been to just want to spend time in a studio and write music. So now I'm just kind of doing that.
Yeah, man.
I try to make it out because I live in Santa Cruz, which is awesome. That's so many beautiful places to go. So I usually try to make it out to the coast for a drive or whatever. But this last weekend, I was straightening up the studio and just doing some more songwriting and stuff too. And I took some downtime for sure, but just stayed kind of close and local. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Sounds like a
All
good weekend.
all good. It was very good. No zero complaints whatsoever. I am glad that we're gonna hopefully start moving past some of the little hot spells that we've been getting in California because I know it's nothing compared to where you're at.
It is
But
94 in the shade here right now.
but if you live in California and were born and raised here like me, if it ever gets outside of 72 to 75 with a slight breeze and a clear sky, you start complaining that
We
you
riot.
everything sucks. Yeah, it's full apocalypse. We're all gonna die. It's almost 80 degrees today with barely any humidity. Ah.
Yeah, my wife and I were arguing last night about humidity, and I was kind of like, my hope was that because the humidity has been like bearable here the last couple of days, it's usually like, okay, so before the hurricane went through, it really feels like the hurricane sucked a lot of the water out of the air because like usually what we had been dealing with the last 3 weeks is like mid 90s and 80% humidity.
Yeah.
And so you just like you walk outside and you're just like soaking wet. It's miserable. It's awful. Like people always all the
Yeah.
time like I would be on press events and stuff like that in the past. People are like, oh, well, you're used to it. Like you're from down here. It's like there's no person alive from this area that is used to any of this. It's
Yeah.
you don't like acclimate. You just like live through it.
You tolerate. There's no
Yeah.
acclimate. It's all tolerate.
Yeah, you take this low cost of living and you get on with life.
That is something I am perpetually envious of. I'll be perfectly honest with you there. It's like the cost of living and just going out to eat and stuff. My
Yeah.
wife and I stopped DoorDash. We are weaning ourselves off of Instacart because we did a test where we filled up an Instacart order and then we just took a screenshot of it and I gave it to my stepson and he drove to the store, bought everything, and then showed us the receipt afterwards. And oh my gosh, dude, we're saving an average of like $90 to $100 for groceries.
Dude, it's crazy. Like on Instacart, so like the way to go, the only service that I've tried so far where I would like consider ordering groceries from them, and again, this is definitely a southern thing. My southernness is going to come out. Is Walmart because like Walmart doesn't like inflate the
Yeah.
prices per
Yeah.
item in addition to some kind of surcharge. So like we do that, but like no, dude, like the DoorDash and stuff like that. I mean, you're talking, especially if you don't have the subscription. It's like we had to do that too, man. Especially during the pandemic, man. Oh man, DoorDash was like, thank goodness for that whole global crisis, because it got so many people hooked on just like, I don't really want to go anywhere. It's like the restaurant is a block away.
Yeah.
Like, just get out and go.
Totally.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that stuff is crazy expensive.
20-30% premium instead of just like, going and getting it. We're just now getting back to the rhythm of kind of like going to the store and like that being okay. Like that's okay. We can go to the store.
We're not going to die going to the store. People did it for years.
That's right.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. The other thing that's kind of a challenge, too, is with the inflation thing is the prices are up. And even if they start reducing interest rates and trying to alter the economy again, I guarantee you
they'll stay up.
It's just going to stay there.
Yeah.
And they're going to, because all these middlemen are like, well, they're used to paying this much still for a plate of waffles and a cheeseburger, so let's just keep charging them that much until finally somebody boycotts our restaurant, and then we'll start lowering it, which is never going to happen because, at least in California, we're so used to just paying out the for everything that, like, we're just expecting it, and so we have to find other ways to save money just so we can eat. It's really stupid.
I will say, seriously. Like, I have been really happy in the last several weeks of, like, seeing some of, like, the finance and economic news coverage has finally been kind of like, all right, inflation is easing, et cetera, et cetera. Why isn't McDonald's lowering prices? Why isn't Starbucks lowering prices? Why isn't this company? Yeah. And then also doing the reporting on Starbucks isn't doing so well because people are like, $8 for a cup of coffee? No.
Yeah.
Or McDonald's, $17 for a combo in some places. Like,
yeah,
this wasn't good when it was $6. It sure as heck ain't good at $16. And so like they're finally starting to put some of that pressure back on some of these companies. And so I think you will start to see, like, McDonald's and a bunch of the fast food restaurants have already started to get back into, like, hey, remember value meals? Remember value menus? Stuff like that.
Value? Okay.
But, like, a lot of them got away with, like, I remember, like, there was some controversy around the word shrinkflation because I think the president mentioned it in his, like, State of the Union address. But the thing is, everyone knows, like, shrinkflation is real, and these companies should be, like, freaking ashamed of giving you less for more.
Yes.
Increasing the price, and then, oh, did you see that the box is actually an ounce? You know how much like an ounce or half an ounce can save some of these companies that are cranking out millions of these things off the product line?
Yeah.
So.
Like, it's in the millions of dollars just for little changes like that.
And increasing the price,
crazy.
like that's what's been unprecedented, is like the fact that we can decrease. And some of that was like they got away with some of it because it was the supply chain issues and sourcing and all of that but it didn't go back to normal at all, for sure. I don't know how we got here. This seems like a weird.
There's a lot on our minds right now, but
and that's our shrinkflation segment.
Yes, we're. I would say that the first 10 minutes of this show is just like freeform segments. It's the segment of multiple segments. You don't know what you're gonna get. Yeah, we're outside the box, bro.
That's why Miles is over this shoulder here. We're just.
Yeah, you got Miles. Is that Colt? Is that Coltrane behind your head?
Yeah, Coltrane's here. Miles is there.
Yep, Brad. Well, let's jump right in and so first things first. We're going to kind of, we did talk a little bit last time, or a lot of it, about CrowdStrike and the CrowdStroke that was created for IT people back then. But now, just kind of the battle for who's in charge of what happened, and the battle for who owes money to who, and where's the accountability. So now what we have going on is you have... Oh, that's the wrong layout. Good job, Rich. Let's see if I can figure this out here. All right. Is this the one? There we go. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Technical
Yeah, you want to
difficulties.
see us and this, and so
Yeah,
like this was
exactly.
Yeah,
So basically, Microsoft is lashing out at Delta, blaming them for the ancient, technology and lack of upgrades to their infrastructure over the years.
yeah. This is like a response to Delta lashing out. They're basically in like a slapping fight right now because Delta turned around and basically they're seeking damages from both Microsoft and CrowdStrike, and Microsoft's like, whoa, what did we have to do with this? Your servers that you're running half of your stuff on are like IBM and some other company. Like, we have nothing to do with this. But like Delta's like, you just cost us $500 million,
right.
with this. And in case you haven't heard of it, obviously CrowdStrike a couple of weeks ago released a security patch. It wasn't tested. It brought down like millions and millions of servers and computers at major businesses all across the world, and we're still kind of in the fallout of that. And their stock, in the meantime, has fell 44% from their previous peak in the last 6 months.
I mean, they're saying the damages could definitely have surpassed $1 billion, and they said that the Delta alone loss was like 325 to
475.
Almost 500 million.
That 1 billion number seems low to me, because if Delta is citing damages or seeking damages of a $500 million, it seems like it's going to be low. It's going to be interesting to see how this one shakes out, but it's definitely far from over, because by the time, if the stock price doesn't just fall on its own, these companies seeking damages from at least CrowdStrike are. I mean, and so if Delta successfully gets money out of Microsoft, is Microsoft going to turn around and then sue CrowdStrike? So
right,
there's a bunch of weird ways that this thing could go, but
there's that one funny thing though. They said that here it says, on the morning of July 22nd, a Microsoft employee, aware that Delta was having difficulty recovering, more difficulty than anybody else, said, "Hey, just checking in, no pressure to reply, blah, blah, blah." And then the Delta employee said, "Hey, we're all good, cool, we'll let you know, and thank you." So I don't really feel like Delta is taking enough responsibility for their side of it. CrowdStrike definitely has to take a lot of the responsibility. From a technical standpoint, I don't totally understand.
That's not going to stand up in court, though. Like, one guy to some other random guy said this thing.
That's true.
That's not going to be a good defense. The fact that Microsoft is included on this is very interesting to me, and that is the part of it to where, did you really want to like slap the Microsoft hive in doing all of this? But we were talking about like Microsoft. Why does Microsoft's system allow an app to have, like CrowdStrike, cybersecurity app, to have such deep hooks that it can push a patch that can disable the entire operating system,
right,
without any kind of guardrails? And like, what is that all about? And I think that's what Delta's case is getting at here. Like, Delta's not just mad at CrowdStrike. Delta's mad at like, hey, our business runs on Microsoft's trying to say, hey, half of your servers and everything don't even run on Azure. And it's like, well, that's not really the point. The stuff that does run on Windows, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So.
That was a good way for them to try to push Azure too, by the way.
Oh, right. Hey, because Azure needs help.
Yeah, it's totally like, oh, you guys, you just weren't upgraded to what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is our latest product. Check it out. We have Microsoft Azure. Yeah.
Maybe you should have switched to Azure and you wouldn't be having these problems. Like,
I'm waiting.
IBM.
I'm waiting for some fake ads to come out that basically try to promote Azure using that context.
And it's like, but based on, like, that's the other thing about this, is that like Azure is going to take a hit from this too, because as much as Microsoft doesn't want to admit it, like this whole thing made them look not quite as bad as CrowdStrike, but Microsoft is. So I think that's why you're seeing like that strength of response from Microsoft, is that they understand, like, okay, this is the first of like many giant rocks that are being thrown at our house that we're going to have to like defend against. So
right, 100%. All right, well, moving on from CrowdStrike, we have this other bit of news here. Let's see if I can pull this up. I'm really struggling with my tech today.
Don't worry, it's just more AI stuff.
Dude, I mean, that's basically it. So we're going to go here, add this to... All right. So jumping into this right here. So the AI world, there's all kinds of companies that are trying to put out these little sort of AI-only hardware devices that just do weird, obscure stuff that you can by far, in many cases, maybe not in this case in particular, but in many cases already do with your phone or benefit from on your phone or the internet or with an app or something like that, right? So
Totally.
Did you ever hear about that piece of hardware? It's called like the Rabbit or...
Oh yeah. That was another. We could have included that here too. The Rabbit at least looked cool. This thing, and it had a display, but like that one, I will say that the Humane pin that we're looking at here, the AI pin from Humane, it at least like took a big swing, and it was kind of like, this is the device of the future. It is a wearable piece of technology with like a projection screen that you read in your hand. It gets out of your way. It's like it can make phone calls, it can give you directions, and it does all this with AI. And none of that really works very well. The Rabbit thing is it ties into your phone, and it like uses apps for you. Like it's like, hey, order something on DoorDash for me. Like order dinner for me on DoorDash, and it literally like goes into DoorDash on your phone and then does that. That's probably like a really wildly inaccurate kind of summary of it. It's close enough. It was I think at least partially, I think like the industrial design on it was done by a really like popular firm called Teenage Engineering. They make a lot of really cool looking stuff, and this thing it definitely looks cool and interesting and everything. And it sucks too, according to all of the people that have reviewed it. So the thing that they have in common, they're doing things slightly differently, but they are like the first of like this wave of AI powered devices and both have gotten a ton of coverage, but like neither one of them have really impressed anybody that spent the money on them.
Right.
And I think like what we had been talking about in the previous couple of episodes, right, is like when there's so much like capital investment from like major players like Microsoft, Apple, etc., not just in their own products that they're working on for AI, they're also investing in these other kind of like startups and everything else like that. What has yet to materialize is a product that justifies its existence, right? Like this AI pin is a perfect example of that. The Rabbit is a perfect example of that. The most successful to date AI, and it's lightly infused with AI. Its main purpose is really just kind of taking pictures and everything. But the most successful one so far has been the Meta Ray-Bans, which are awesome. I have a pair. I finally kind of gave in and got a pair, probably because the blitz of marketing from Threads and Instagram finally worked on me to buy another Meta product.
The pressure, so much pressure.
Took him to Disney World, and here's the thing: is like the camera on the Meta Ray-Bans is really good. Like it's when I take pictures with it, I'm honestly usually excited to see kind of like what it did, because it's a really cool perspective. It takes videos, you can talk to it, ask it questions. It's like basically like a pair of AirPods built in, so like it's pretty good sound quality. You can listen to your music, you can say, hey Meta, play this song or play this album or whatever. And like to your point, you were saying like some of these products, you're just kind of like, why wouldn't you just use your Apple Watch, or why wouldn't you just use your phone? Right. And like the Humane pin, that's like its biggest thing that a lot of people were just kind of like, I don't understand this thing. It's like you can get all of this stuff with a screen on your Apple Watch. So like over the next, I would say 6 months or so, it's going to be really like this AI spending and investment has really been the thing that's propping up the S&P 500, which had a really bad day on Monday, but has since rebounded 2.3% today. So it had its worst day since 2022 earlier this week. Now it's had its best day since late 2022 today. And all of that volatility is really in response to the economy and job reports and stuff like that. But what's going to be interesting moving forward with AI is so much of the market right now is invested in AI. What's going to happen once once more things like Rabbit and Humane Pin and those shoes start to drop, and they go, all right, we're going to have to pull back on these capital expenditures, because that's going to have a huge impact.
Well, it's weird. Market. I feel like as somebody who's been in Silicon Valley since the mid to late 90s, I feel like I'm watching the same movie over and over again, but it's just about AI. So one of the things that we were talking about this before we started the show was I remember when all of a sudden just the idea of tech kicked in. Mm-hmm. You had all these investors and just jumping in going, okay, what kind of business do you have? Because we want to make a bunch of money off of your startup or whatever. And you barely had to have a website that even made any sense about what your product or service was. You're just like, we're a tech company in Silicon Valley, California. And they're like, cool, here's $10 million for your Series A, go. And then they do it and they would flail around. And you had all these companies getting exorbitant amounts of money and they barely had a business plan. There was no market for half of these companies of what it is they were saying that they were producing. And so that's why the dot-com bubble burst, is you had all these companies that came in, just siphoned all of this venture capital money and then came crashing down. And then eventually what happened is what you said, where things start to settle in a little bit. And then all of a sudden the investors started to pull back on their money and they're like, okay, wait a second. I need to see that there's a very clear need for this. Mm-hmm. I need to know exactly what the TAM is, where's your market, like what human beings are demanding that they need this, and is it more than just like your grandma that needed something? You're like, is this really a legitimate product idea or service idea? And technology was kind of crappy back then too. So like with the web and everything, so everything was just a big crapshoot because nobody even knew. And I'm seeing the same thing with AI. Where like, hey, okay, I have this little brick-looking thing, and it's made out of plastic, and you talk into it, and it does AI things, and you're like...
Yeah, it looks like the Star Trek, the communicator, the little Star Trek thing. It's like, yeah, okay, that's great. I mean, do you remember when Google Glass came out?
Yes.
Gosh, that was like 10 years ago at least. I mean, it looked ridiculous, and everyone at the time was just kind of like, wait, this is what you want the future to be, is this tiny little... piece of glass that you can barely read in your eye. And it's kind of like, that was 10 years ago and seemed ridiculous. Like, would we really want that? And it's like, well, but if you can recontextualize it now with the Meta Ray Bans, it's kind of like, oh, well, I don't, I can't remember. I think it was Steve Jobs that basically said, it was in some Wall Street Journal, or maybe it was the All Things D conference interview, where he was kind of talking about, he was in essence kind of previewing this idea that headphones and audio is really, that's the augmented reality that we already have, because he was talking about, like, it's really impressive what a set of headphones can do if you close your eyes, right? Like it can it can take you somewhere, it can like transport you. And so like the really kind of like unseen technology here was like how audio was going to play such a huge part in this AI augmented reality thing. So if you put that on the Meta Ray Bans, Google Glass seemed kind of silly, but now the Meta Ray Bans are like a killer product, and we're probably a lot closer now to getting like full, like some sort of projection or technology in a pair of glasses, and that's what Zuckerberg's working on. That's what all these, that's what Meta is fully focused on for sure.
Yeah. The only thing I just couldn't get around with the Google Glass stuff, and honestly some of the other designs that were out, is like, not everybody wants to look like they're part in some like weird anime film,
dude.
Yeah, like where it's like it's a little sliver of glass and you see just through that little messages. Mm-hmm. I'm like, who in their right mind can read a bunch of garbage scrolling in 2-point font at like 100 miles an hour? Like,
I've never worn them or seen them in person, but I never really understood like how anybody could see them. But it's kind of like, like if you improve the Meta Ray Bans even further with just like some light projection technology or even like just okay screens, I could totally see that. I still don't want to wear like a giant Vision Pro on my head.
No.
Nobody want to do that.
Nobody wants that to be. That was my issue with those too. Is like, as a lifestyle, who wants to sit around in their own home and have to have something on their face the whole time?
That's kind of like your wife and child are just like looking at you from across the couch. It's
yeah,
kind of
like exactly. You can't even look over it, and like at least when we're all doing the idiot thing of like being on our phones and not talking to each other. At least I can look over and see you. If I put those things on, my whole family just disappears into like desktop screens and video game screens and feeds coming in and all that other crap. I don't know.
The moment that the Apple keynote on the Vision Pro really jumped the shark for me, and it was surprising because I'd never really seen something from Apple so disconnected to me anyway from kind of like the audience, was that scene at the end. They were showing a commercial and it was like a dad with a Vision Pro on taking a spatial video of his daughter as she blew out the candles. I'm like, get that off of your head.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
And sing happy birthday to your kid. It's that type of crazy.
Yeah.
To wrap all this up, key stat, between May and August, more AI, this is according to The Verge, more Humane AI pens were returned than purchased.
Yes. And that is not the first time I've heard that happening with new tech that came out. And then you have all the early adopter dorks that are like, oh, I'm jumping all over this because I want to be one of the first people to have it. Well, I'm like, you know what? I could be the first person to walk around the city with a bag full of dog crap, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Speaking of poop.
People love being number one, dude. But not number two.
Speaking of number two and poop. Okay,
they made them swim in the Seine. They just made them do it. They were like, too much E. coli is in the River Seine in Paris to do this triathlon. We can't go in the river. And then people were like, wait a second, they're going to make people swim in that crap? And yes, literally. Yes. And then they made them do it.
I feel like they turned this into a quadrathlon. In that you have the three main sports in a triathlon, and then they also added on the sport of testing your immune system
and getting whatever like booster you needed to get after you got out of that water.
That's right.
We touched on this briefly last time because it's just such an insane thing. But like, yeah, just to kind of like get you an update on this story. Someone did say that they came down with E. coli sickness, but none of the major news outlets could confirm it. But all of the athletes were not thrilled. They just sucked it up and they did it. They
definitely sucked it up. That's for sure.
The question is just how much.
How many gallons did they suck up? Who knows? But and I could go down that path farther, but I won't because I'm at work right now. So anyhow, moving on from that super So we have the triathlon, the big news.
The big news this week.
This is the big super news. I'm switching tabs here. So we got the judge ruled that Google is officially, in quote, a monopolist in the U.S. antitrust case regarding search. Yep. So in the search and advertising markets, actually. So that's definitely been a pretty interesting one. It's kind of weird. I was thinking about this, like, if you make the best version of something and everybody wants that over everything else, I mean, yeah, you can make sure you don't own all the companies that might be your competition, but at the end of the day, if yours is the best, what do you say about that? I mean, I even heard that some Microsoft employees were like, yeah, I mean, but they're way better than us. We can't even give Bing away. We're just using Google anyways ourselves. So whatever, I don't know.
I mean, like, look, Google is. This one was not hard. Google is definitely a monopoly, and yes, it's because they have a search. Because we need to clarify that this is a search. They were it was a 10-week trial. They were found that Alphabet's Google, so Google as a company, not the entire parent company of Alphabet, but Google has acted as an illegal monopoly. And the word illegal before monopoly is important there because it is not illegal in the United States, according to antitrust law, to hold a monopoly. That is not in and of itself illegal. So you can't just say, well, what are they supposed to do? They make the best price. Like, right. But monopolies play by a different set of rules in the United States to kind of like keep things fair as much as possible. So what this judge is basically saying is like, we already knew they were a monopoly, but what we did know is whether or not they were playing by the monopolist rules, and so they broke a bunch of rules. And specifically, they're basically saying that they're using this market share that they have as a cudgel to kind of keep other players down. And the big one Apple is actually wrapped up in is these exclusive deals that they cut. So like one of the big things that come out of this trial was the fact that Google is paying Apple 20 billion with a B. Google is paying Apple $20 billion a year to be the exclusive default search engine option inside of Safari. So when you open your phone up, go to Safari, and you Google something, see, and that's the other thing about this is that we call the act of searching something on the internet Googling. Like it's a noun. They have
it's like the Kleenex of search, basically.
They are the generic now, and so like you're getting into kind of like brands used to fight against that. Like they didn't want to become a generic. They didn't want every other brand to now be known as their brand because it used to be bad. Well, so like in Google's case, it's like fantastic because But Rich, you mentioned earlier the fact that there's really no other good alternatives, and like Apple's Eddie Q basically said that Microsoft couldn't pay us to use Bing, as there's not a dollar amount that Microsoft could pay us. Even if they wanted to give us $21 billion instead of Google's 20, we still wouldn't make them the default search engine because their product is not as good as Google. And that is a real kind of problem here that nobody else has been able to manage to.
Right.
But what this judge is saying, so you have the argument that, well, everything else sucks, right? Like, I don't want to use DuckDuckGo. I don't want to use Bing. I don't want to pay $10 a month for a pretty good search engine in Kagi because, yes, premium search engines exist. So, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, not, there's nothing else to really use. But the reason that is the case, what this finding is saying is that the reason that is the case is because Google has made it so. They have acted illegally to keep their market share. I mean,
business people that run those businesses, they have to be shrewd and competitive, and I get it. The other thing is that so I don't know if you know what OAuth is by name, but basically when we all of a sudden were able to start using our social media accounts to create accounts on websites or logins, that's OAuth. And so Google now, I
thought you said Olaf, like from Frozen. And I was like,
No, we're not talking about cartoons. Yeah. No, OAuth, like O is in Oprah, A is in Apple, U is in umbrella,
got it.
TH, okay.
Not Olaf. Got it.
No, Olaf's cool, but he's not logging into websites, so that I know of. But so you think about that. Now Google's footprint is so much farther beyond search and everything. How can you possibly decouple the pieces of Google that are causing the problems or being the monopoly versus the ones that aren't? And I'm sure they're doing. They've been convicted, right? The thing actually.
They were found to be an illegal monopoly. Now they're going to appeal, and that's going to slow. So that's the thing. It's okay, Google's a monopoly, but now they're going to appeal, and that could delay the process by 18 months. Appeals often. So according to Bloomberg, appeals often take between a year and 18 months to make it through court. And so in the meantime, they've scheduled a hearing on September 6th to start discussing potential remedies. So the remedies, right, is okay, what are we going to make Google do? You just mentioned breaking up. So that would be one potential remedy, right? We need to break. But see, the thing is, years ago, right, Google reorganized as Alphabet. And so now Google is the search product. Right. And then Alphabet obviously owns all these other things. But so what's kind of woven in here and interconnected and everything like that? Android is still under Google, the search product. Yep. YouTube, I believe, is its own company. Isn't that right?
Nope.
Is YouTube?
It's under Alphabet.
Alphabet, right? Okay, so but it's its own company under Alphabet, correct? It's not a Google company.
Correct.
But YouTube is a search engine. And YouTube is so intertwined into the search product, and it's so. Think about this. It's when you Google anything, even in Bing, or when you search for something in Bing and then Google something on Google, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna get like a ton of YouTube videos. So like even outside of their browser, you're still getting YouTube results. And so a lot of people don't. I say a lot of people, younger people, will go straight to YouTube to look for whatever they were actually part of this trial was talking about like. TikTok's has gotten to have like taken a little bit of share away from Google as a search, and it's like no, it hasn't, and a lot of that would be because yes, people might go into TikTok to search for specific things and how-to videos and stuff like that, but Google is so big and has YouTube as kind of like another way to kind of pull traffic away from everybody else.
Yeah, and think about the context of how many companies are using the Google Suite for all their email and all their calendaring and all their services and stuff like that. So now they're even more plugged into that. And that is all data that Google has access to as well.
That's the big thing. Yeah. And see, like, that's another one of the things that, like, so another potential remedy. So break them up, right? So make Google sell off Chrome, the browser, which is just an insane. I can't imagine that that'll actually be floated, but it might. But like that sounds like something like one of these congressional hearings might come up with, which are ludicrous. But like sell off the Chrome browser, sell off the Android business. Those things are not. Those don't get at the core. Maybe Chrome, but like there are already 5 different independently owned versions of Chrome now. There's the Brave browser, which is Chrome just with a different UI. There's Arc. The whole companies have built on top of this browser technology. So that's not going to be impactful in moving this away. So like,
well, it's like when you go to gmail.com or google.com and say you're logged into your Google account, you click on it and all of those apps come down.
Yeah.
Those are all like essentially different companies, but it's all of their technology and everything is so integrated with the other stuff that like decoupling that, you'd just be killing the product altogether. Like if you sold Gmail off as a separate company, what are they going to be, a partner?
Yeah, and so like, and that's the data. That's the data side of this. And so one other potential remedy, right, would be to have Google share all this data, this fire hose of data coming from every angle and every other product like Gmail. I mean, guys, it's crazy. Like you can just like forget Docs feeds into Google search in some kind of way, right? Because like they're using all of that data. So one potential remedy would be to make Google share some of this data to assist its rivals and to make things a little bit more fair. And another one, and I think that this one is probably the one that's most likely of what I've heard, would be to basically make it so where Google is no longer allowed to have these deals in place with Apple, with Microsoft, with whoever else to be like, okay, we'll give you so much money every year to be the exclusive browser by default. But here's the thing is like, if anyone's going to be hurt by that, it's probably most likely like Apple because they stand to lose $20 billion a year if that's made illegal. And like Apple, just to give you an idea of like how big that is for Apple. So like Apple made $24.2 billion in so Apple takes that $20 billion and then they put it under their services revenue. They made $24.2 billion in services revenue in Q3 alone. So like if you just like did some very back of the napkin math and just said, okay, multiply 24 billion times, let's round up to 25 billion times 4 for each quarter of the year. And let's say their services revenue is roughly $100 billion a year. And Google is providing, she's talking. This is dumbest. Can we stop that? Can that be something that we can tackle is like, don't let them build it into every device in your house, like this TV. I don't want to talk to Google through my television. Like that's honestly the last thing that I want it to do.
Yeah, I know.
That should be, let's stop that. But like if we just like extrapolate here, we're looking at $100 billion in services revenue a year roughly. And a fifth of that is coming from Google to be the exclusive search engine in Safari. that's going to hurt Apple more than anyone else. So, like,
Yeah.
what do you think is something that they could actually? Is there a remedy here, or is it just like the search engine race is over, and Google will be the top choice until something else takes search's place?
I think it will be the latter that you just said, but the one thing that I'm interested in seeing is what happens with AI search on the Chat GPT side,
Yep.
the Open AI side, and Microsoft. One of the major things with Microsoft's products that I've just never been able to get into is they can't seem to get a handle on a really strong UI and great user experience with stuff like Apple has. And so part of me is like, oh, they were super smart and they bought OpenAI. Sweet, dude, they're going to crush it now. They just leapfrogged Google in certain areas. However, Google is already the master of search, so I feel like it's only a matter of time before Gemini does what it needs to do, and then, they'll start crushing them on that front too. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting game going on right now.
Right. Well, and one thing too, Microsoft has invested heavily in OpenAI, and is definitely, they just got in trouble. So part of the antitrust thing. So they don't own OpenAI. They have put a bunch of money into it, and so has Apple. Right. So like everybody's investing in OpenAI, but what they actually just got in trouble for because of this antitrust hearing thing is Apple and Microsoft. Microsoft was said, okay, well, we just put all this money in here. We want a board seat. And so they'll call it a board observer seat. So we're like, we're not on the board, but we're definitely in the room for the meetings, nodding our head or shaking our head at what we're hearing. And so whenever that kind of came out, and Apple had one too, they both pulled their observer seats because we talked about this. This might have been one of the deleted episodes, the mini deleted episodes. Yeah. But like, Apple and Microsoft both pulled their observer seats because it's kind of like, how do we think the board is going to vote when Apple and Microsoft basically go, yeah, that's a stupid idea. I wouldn't do that if I were you guys. Like, do you think they're going to just ignore that or do what the money is saying to do? So yeah, those things moving forward are going to get really, really interesting.
Yeah.
But like another thing people have really been asking or, talking about in the Apple space is like Apple should build a search engine. Like Apple should make a true, like Apple should buy Brave or Apple should buy DuckDuckGo or Coggy or one of these other ones and like do a search engine and build the Apple Intelligence thing into it. And Apple actually testified in the case that would cost them $6 billion annually. So what would you do, Rich? Would you take this $20 billion check to just like to do nothing? Or say you don't get the $20 billion anymore, but now you're spending $6 billion annually.
Yeah, and you're going to try to compete against a behemoth that already way owns a space, way more than you ever will. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
And your star player is Siri.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah.
So like Siri, every day, if Siri was a person, she'd be thanking her stars that Google exists because that's where she literally gets like 90% of the answers to the things that I ask anyway. So
exactly.
Interesting to see how that pans out moving forward. I don't think anything is going to, if we learned anything from the Microsoft Internet Explorer kind of antitrust thing from the 90s, like nothing's really going to happen until something else showed up. In this case, we were talking about this earlier, Chrome showed up and finally put Internet Explorer to bed.
Yep.
I one of the other kind of little metaphors would be like search right now feels like a library card catalog, whereas AI is like the librarian that you're on speaking terms with, and you walk in and go like, I need this book by this author, and they go, let me take you to that. Oh, and have you heard of this author? Because if you like this person, you like this. That is what AI needs to be, not some dumb pin that is worse at giving you directions to a coffee shop than the watch on your wrist.
Right, or trying to project something that's totally unreadable on the palm of your hand. I don't. Why would I need that? I don't know.
Hit by a car.
So, yeah, exactly. So, speaking of other things related to Google, we have something that we've all been familiar with. Like we've all been casting, content for a long time, and now Chromecast is probably going to head to a graveyard near you pretty soon here.
The newest member of the Google graveyard is Chromecast.
It's a full graveyard. There's a very growing graveyard. I remember all like
by the week.
The social media efforts they've tried to do with certain tools and try to play the game when Facebook blew up with Google Wave and all that other weird.
Oh my God! I was just about to say, remember Google Wave because Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Oh my gosh, man!
2013 to 2024. Like, is this the long? Other than Android? I don't know. Like, I'd be interested. I know that the Google Home stuff has been around for a while. Nest has been around for a little while, and Google did not create that, but they own it, and they haven't killed it yet. So, like, good for the Nest stuff. But, like, 2013 to 2024 was a pretty good run for the Chromecast, but the writing was kind of on the wall because, like, every TV operating system thing in the world, Roku has Chromecast built into it now. So I mean, like,
well, think about all like the remotely modern hotels you've stayed at. Anywhere, the Chromecast thing's built into the TV. Everywhere you go, you can pretty much cast from your phone, your Netflix. So you don't have to log in to your Netflix account on that TV at your hotel anymore. Now you're just throwing everything either from your laptop or your phone right to the TV, and it was Chromecast built in, or it at least had the old school, dongle thing that you could throw in the Chromecast hardware and throw that in there as well. But like,
if you think about it's such a hacky, and I know people will be upset about it going away because it was like $30 and it did something very cool, which was get content from your phone to your your big screen. But like, if you really think about it, the idea is very hacky. It's like the original premise was that you would be in a Chrome browser and you would send whatever was playing in the browser to the TV. But like, what that didn't account for was like the proliferation of these apps and streaming services that are like, they can fit on anything, and it doesn't take much processing power at all to run Netflix or to run HBO Max or Amazon Prime or Max or Apple TV Plus. Like, the processing power that these devices need to run is just very, very low. And so, like, why fiddle with casting, which never looked very good? Like, the 4K streams that the apps produce look much better.
That was always kind of a clumsy experience.
To
be honest, it was never like super smooth.
It would work, but it was not like it worked and it was great. It was like it worked and it was good enough for most situations. But like, they're now moving on. They had the Google TV. Chromecast with Google TV was the $49 dongle, where now they're killing that off and replacing it with this new $99 Google TV Streamer 4K box, and they're definitely going to be taking on NVIDIA with the NVIDIA Shield, which is a great Android set-top box player. It's really, to me, before this, and it'll be interesting to see the reviews on this new Google box, but they're going after the Apple TV, the NVIDIA Shield. Prior to this, though, I thought that the Google TV with Chromecast was a piece of junk. Like, the operating system on it was just so slow because of how underpowered the hardware was. But look, competition in the TV set box space is fantastic. Like, we need more, not less. And I'm a huge fan of the Apple TV box. I love it. I'd love for there to be more NVIDIA Shield type level experiences out there to kind of keep because, like, honestly, with the Apple TV, it's like they've done some really cool stuff over the years, but it has not advanced as much.
It's not
as it
changed.
could have.
No.
Right.
Yeah. I have a friend who's been using Apple TV exclusively for the last bunch of years, and even last night I was over at his house, and it's kind of looks the same.
Exactly
as
the same.
2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
What they have going for them on that box is how snappy the video loads.
Yeah.
Like, if you ever switch over to something else, and I used the NVIDIA Shield for several months, and one of the things that I did notice, so NVIDIA has like a 4K upsampling kind of codec in the box, and so it'll actually take your really compressed, crappy looking YouTube TV stream, and it'll upsample that to 4K, and you can see it. Like, it looks vastly better. I'd love for the Apple TV to get something like that, but Apple's got some really nice Apple-y features like the color grading, and like they will like redo the color settings on your TV but within the Apple TV box, so you don't have to mess with the terrible TV. There's stuff like that it's great at, but more competition, definitely best.
Yeah, definitely the better. Yeah. Let's see here. So next we got. I think we. That's pretty much it for the bulk of the tech stuff we have today. We
got a new Mac Mini.
Do we have the new Mac Mini in here?
Yeah, there's some rumors circulating around the new Mac Mini.
Let me see if I can bring that up here.
So our friend, your friend, Mark Gurman from Bloomberg, has a hot tidbit on the next Mac Mini. They're saying, speaking of Apple TV, man, we'll have to edit this so that we get like that segue, like, or we'll just leave it in.
I was clunky. I think I forgot.
Rich.
I forgot to open that up before we started the show. It's always something.
No worries.
You know.
But like speaking of the Apple TV, we'll just start it here. Speaking of the Apple TV, like Apple, for years people have been asking Apple to like make a Mac Mini that was actually mini, and with the with the M series processors, like everybody thought like, oh well, they'll definitely do that now. So basically shrink the Mac Mini into a space that is similar to the Apple TV. And that is the new rumor, that Apple is preparing a new model of the Mac Mini that would be about half of the size of the current Mac Mini, but a little bit taller. And they're saying that it's going to be available in two configurations, an M4 chip and an M4 Pro chip. So the Pro variant of the current M3, is the Mac Mini on M3 or is it still on M2?
Good question.
It is on. Hey, are you coggying this? It's M2 Pro, or are you Googling this? Okay, because I definitely Googled it. It's on the M2, so the M2 Pro Mac Mini, and that is a fantastic machine. Such a good Mac that a bunch of people were like, why is this as performant as a Mac Studio with the M2 Pro and around the same price? So if we get a tiny little, I mean, an Apple TV box is basically like this. It's only a little bit bigger than like honestly half of an iPhone Pro Max. I mean, it's tiny, like a Mac Mini in a package, just a little bit bigger than an iPhone. Like that you could tuck into a stand or a dock or. I mean, that sounds awesome. I'm excited about it. I don't really have a use for one right now, but like,
I could see. I'm going to be in the market to update my audio workstation, and I have like a 2019 iMac right now, but I think I've been looking at the Mac switching over to a Mini if I can't quite pull off a Mac Studio financially. But the other thing is, I don't want to have to only get the best experience if I'm willing to like pony up for a monitor that costs as much as my computer.
Right. And people, like, so I last year was in a similar position, and my plan was to do an iMac, and I just did not want a 21.5-inch iMac. Or what is it now? It's 24. It's 24 inches. The new iMacs are 24 inches.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing a 27 for the new
and
ones.
But like I was really hoping that when they last year, one of those events, that they were going to announce like a 27-inch iMac Pro.
I would have been so stoked for that.
But what I ended up getting was a MacBook Pro, and then I think this is probably why I got a studio display, because I wanted an Apple display.
Right.
If you have ever tried to use a Mac I'll include LG into this, and usually LG is pretty good about working well with the Mac. But if like you're working with like HDMI or DisplayPort instead of just like a direct USB-C or Thunderbolt, even the USB-C connections can be really flaky with a dock.
Yeah,
I've had terrible experiences over the years, so I was like, I'm just going to get a studio display. If I can't get this iMac Pro, then I'm just going to get the studio display, and I don't regret that 1 second. But I had to pay $1,600 for the monitor, and then I went and bought a MacBook Pro for $4,000, and that's kind of like, it would have been a lot nicer if I could have just spent, well, I don't know, a new iMac Pro. the old one was like more than $5 or $6 grand. So this is, even though it's more stuff, more pieces, I think it's probably still cheaper than what the iMac, the previous generation iMac Pro, which is still a great machine.
Yeah.
If you still have an iMac Pro, you probably still love and use that thing. I really hope that they come out with another one.
Yeah, I would like to actually, I don't know if this is ridiculous from a design perspective, but to be able to have like a 32-inch iMac Pro,
yes,
that would be
Co-sign.
super dope. Because for me, I like in my recording studio, I just have lots of little knick-knacky things everywhere. There's like adapters and cable things and docks and like dongles and like guitar picks and little things to use on my guitar. Just like there's a lot of knickknacks and stuff like that too. So adding more pieces on the computing side of things, I'm always trying to avoid that. So one thing I always loved about the iMac is like everything is just in this giant screen, and it's so clean to have that plus the wireless devices, you know, the peripherals or whatever. So I don't know. I remember when those iMac Pros first came out, when they were the dark gray ones. Dude, those things were crazy fast, super nice, really, really slick. They had 4 USB-C ports on the back. I think 2 or 3 of the USB-A ports, and everything else that you needed.
And they're one of the few Intel Macs that I would still, like, if you can get one for a good price, then I would say go for it, because you'll be happy with it. It's a fantastic machine. But so like the current Mac Mini, the M2 with an M2 Pro, is $12.99. So that plus a studio display of $1,500, which you can regularly get for about $1,300 or $1,400 if you know where to look.
Right.
But they're constantly, the studio displays are constantly going on sale. We actually on MacSales.com, we sell those studio displays on a discount all the time. I cannot highly recommend enough the studio display. Like, it is phenomenal. I have never had a single issue with it. The firmware updates that come through, that process is phenomenal. It's got extra ports on the back, USB-C ports that come in handy like a lot more often than I ever thought that they would, and it just works. And I feel like that with a new Mac Mini, even if they let's say that they raise the price because of M4 Pro, and the M4 is a monster chip. It's phenomenal in the iPad Pro, like we talked about. Even if they raise the price to $1,500, you're talking about a hell of a workstation for $3,000.
Yep.
Between that Mac Mini and a studio display, and I mean, it's about as close to an iMac. I mean, that probably blows the old iMac Pro out of the water, even.
Oh, 100%, dude.
With that M4 Pro, M4 Pro or an M4 Pro, like, it's going to be really interesting to kind of see. That's the only painful thing is, like, I've got an M3 Mac. I splurged for the M3 Max and this MacBook Pro that I have, and
I'm always scared if I'm gonna make a computer purchase from Apple. I'm always scared to do it after, if more than 2 months has passed since the last product announcement.
Should I wait?
I'm like, there's always the should I wait thing, you know? Like, I'm never going to be the guy who stands in line to buy anything from a store at midnight, because I think that that's just ridiculous. But like with phones, I'll typically wait like two years with a phone, 2 or 3 years, so that I actually get to experience the joy of a massive performance upgrade instead of a slight one. But I just threw, $1,500 down for a freaking new phone. And I'm the same way with computers. It's like, I'll keep my computers for at least 4 or 5 years, especially if it's Apple. Which
with
is
these new M series
use.
processors, dude, there's no pain to it anymore. Because like in the past, it was like, not only were you worried that they were going to release a new one, but then like it was going to feel slower within a couple of years. These new M series processors, like, it's who knows how long these are going to feel snappy. I mean, the M1 is still serving a lot of things just fine. And there's a lot of M1, Pro and Max and Ultra users that are still extremely happy. And like, you see that all the time now. I've got an M1 Ultra, and like, I don't know if I should upgrade or not, because like it still does really, really well, blah, 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 blah. Like, This is a really exciting rumor. I definitely would be more excited about an iMac Pro, even though I would not be in the market anymore because I'm super happy with my setup. But
Yep.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, dude, totally. And hopefully my wife won't kill me when I decide to pull the trigger on it. Because she's like, hey, you can either have a really nice computer or 84 guitars, but you can't have both. Okay.
I don't know how I've avoided the guitars thing. I've got one guitar. My parents gave it to me when I graduated high school, and it's my baby. And I'm like, damn it! I'm 37 years old. If I want to go buy a Martin or a Taylor guitar, and I want to have both of them, and my Larrivee, then I should be able to do that. But it's like I just can't justify it, dude.
Yeah, I can because I do so much music, and when you're like, if you're a music producer, different guitars have different sounds
they're different
and
tools.
Tones that they're appropriate for, like Telecaster versus acoustic. So my wife is inexplicably supportive of how much crap that I own for my studio, but she knows that it all just brings me a lot of joy. So
heck yeah,
can't argue with that, dude.
Marriage for the win.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
I definitely got a keeper. I married way above my pay grade. That's for damn sure. Still trying to figure out what she sees in me after 10 years, but what's left to be seen. We'll see when we get super old and crotchety how that goes. So hey, wrapping up here, we're kind of getting to the end of the line. We have the final thing, which is meme of the week, and here we go. Let's see if I can. This is Golem being interviewed by the Olympic news media about what it was like to swim in the Seine River. This used to be a real Olympic athlete, actually, and then they transitioned to Golem.
Now, what country did Smeagol hail from?
Maybe it was France. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is a quality meme. After we talked about this last week, I literally was like mindlessly scrolling through Reddit and saw this.
Oh my gosh! And the hits just kept coming too. I'm sure we're going to see more of the Poopy River memes coming out over the next week or so. So
yeah, absolutely.
Anyhow, all right. Well, I think that is it for our show today. We want to thank everybody who, if anybody, has been watching or joining us and following along. We love your comments. We appreciate any shares or the proverbial smashing of the subscribe button on YouTube. Please join us next time for a whole new fresh agenda, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, guys. Later on.
All right. Peace out.